So the holiday season this year, Thanksgiving is the first major holiday of this time and one of our favorites. And the reality is we can feel the excitement of the holiday, we can feel the joy of the holiday, but we also can be reminded of people that we grieve and we've lost simply by seeing the empty chair that isn't representing it's representing someone that isn't there, that
Right.
we're no longer able to experience life with. So we're talking about a technique today and something for our toolbox therapeutically
Hmm.
called empty chair method.
Because the holidays are supposed to be filled with warmth and joy and all of those things. And I think sometimes we feel a lot of pressure that we can't grieve or that we should be past it or move on. And a lot of times it's loaded, for you personally with Christmas, it's very loaded for
Right.
you. You have a lot of memories of your mom. We watch It's a Wonderful Life and cry every year because it was her favorite movie. And everyone has that in their life. They have those people that are missing, and it's the empty chair, the person that you wish was at the
And
table.
there's some growth there because I felt like if I didn't grieve and I avoided a lot of those activities and traditions, that was somehow dishonoring my mother and dishonoring the grief that I felt, the overwhelmingness that I would in the moment,
Hmm.
that somehow I was not living truthfully. And the reality is that when we are growing and healing, two things can be true at once. We
Hmm.
can be joyful in the season and enjoying even new traditions or honoring some of the things that we have experienced, while at the same time experiencing grief and even some devastation that may
Hmm.
come because of those memories and those situations.
Well, and grief and gratitude can live side by side,
They
right?
can
They can.
coexist.
They
Yeah.
can. I mean, um,
More than one thing can be true at the same time.
I've learned over the years to find a place where I can grieve the loss of Jordan and I can be grateful for the time that I got to be his mom and remembering the funny, great things. So I think that allowing yourself to talk about the people that are missing and that aren't at the table and remembering them, and even allowing yourself the moment to be sad or cry or walk away or
Right.
take a moment, it's okay. And you can be grateful and grieve in the same moment. I think allowing families to do that is huge during the holiday season.
So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about how do we do that? How do we actually use that technique to our advantage?
So I watched a few videos on it and I've read some information, and it says that it's a way to allow your brain to process. So literally sitting across from an empty chair,
Right.
putting a chair with no one in it and just sitting across from it and giving yourself an outlet to say the things that you need to say. I love you. I miss you. I wish you were here. I remember when. Um, all of those things, being able to speak it out loud to the chair as if the person that's gone is there.
Because speaking out loud gives it, you're healing some life.
Mm.
It actually gives it some progression, some forward motion. Uh,
Gives it somewhere to go.
yeah. And I've practiced this. I've done a ton of work in families that lost, that didn't have pastoral care. And I can remember always throughout those moments, because I would work with families that I didn't really get to know, except for like the last few days. And then I wouldn't really know that person, but I would use a very similar technique. And it's something you should use. People that will find some closure, they'll write a letter. But this is a little more personal, where it's more of an open dialogue, and you'll remember things that they would have said, things how they would have reacted to
Mm-hmm.
questions that you had. um, I would ask people, you know, if you had an opportunity to talk to them today, what would they tell you? What would they tell you? What would they say to you? And you could see people's faces as you were speaking to them. They could remember
Mm-hmm.
things that they would have said, sayings that they had, responses that were common, especially people that were very supportive and loving towards us. You remember how they were loving to you, and you remember and you live that again, so that you become grateful for grief. Even I know that sounds like it's not possible and an oxymoron in a way, but you can become grief becomes almost a welcomed memory
Mm-hmm.
if you handle it in a place of gratitude, that I did get a chance to know someone who I cared very deeply for.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is really just a metrics and a measuring of love. It's like a gauge of how much you grieve is how much you loved, and
It's
how
what
much
they
you
meant to you. It's the
correct.
place they held in your life. A lot of patients, when they lose a significant other that they've been married to for 60 years,
Right.
50 years, they've spent more time with this person
Than
than
anyone
they
else.
have with anyone
Yeah.
else. And they, the mourning that they go through and the gratitude that they share. I have a 90 something year old patient that consistently speaks about her husband and he's
Yeah.
gone. And she'll talk about how he sang to her and how
Yeah.
they took walks after dinner and all the special things. And she loves to share her memories of him. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to hear the love that she shared for him and the love that she continues to hold for him, even though he's been gone for years.
And sometimes it can feel a little bit. We don't want anyone to do this and feel forced. Maybe it's someplace you have to be completely isolated,
Yeah.
because you are going to be reminded of them. You're going to be reminded of them around the Thanksgiving table, in a dish that they may have prepared, in a story they may have told, a decoration. As we
Mm-hmm.
transition into Christmas, whatever that is, you're going to remember them in really meaningful ways, and it's going to sneak up on you.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to give yourself a space, and if you can't get alone time, take a drive in the car, invite them into that seat, have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
It's probably going to involve some tears. It's going to give you space to release an emotion that maybe you haven't given yourself space for.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard a great story about Jesus uh, this morning in service, and it was talking about the lepers who were cleansed, the miracle that happened, and the story of gratitude. But one of the things that pointed our was jumped out to both of us was the healing was in progression
Mm-hmm.
towards the command for forward motion.
Right.
And there's something about putting in practice, putting into words, putting that ability,
Action.
yeah, putting action, even when we don't necessarily, we're not going to feel like we want to be made whole while we sit in our grief alone. And sometimes we have to give ourselves a space, a therapeutic, healing, safe space, to have those conversations.
Right.
On the flip side, people will use this tool a lot of times with something that they experienced that was traumatic in a wrong way. They'll write a letter
Mm-hmm.
to someone that harmed them or caused them pain. They'll express those things. Maybe they're not able to do, maybe they're gone. So why not use this for people that we miss?
Yes.
Why not use the same tool and the same therapeutic method to
Mm-hmm.
give ourselves space to celebrate that, so that when grief comes, it comes as this welcome guest, because it comes back with all these memories and all, and you can cry and smile at
Right.
the same time. You can tell funny jokes, and there's things you tell me about Jordan all the time, and um, visiting his grave. I've had conversations with him. I never met him because of you and things you shared, and being able to be in that moment
Yeah.
and share those. That's healing and that's progress. And
Right.
it's not perfection. We're not asking for you to get your act together, but to give that
No.
space, so when those things do come back and that grief does wash over us so strongly, it comes not just with sadness and heaviness and brokenness. It comes also with joy and remembrance and memories and the things that we experienced.
For sure. And remembering that the brain heals through expression, not in silence.
Right.
Holding it all in. And I think about the wounds that fester. You know, they've got these scabs and everything's festering underneath it. I That's what I think about when it's unexpressed. You're holding it in, you're
And
holding it tight, it's festering.
that's that story, going back to that story of Jesus saying,
Right.
go show yourself. And while they went, they were healed. It's that
As
progress.
you're moving,
Yeah.
right? As
The
you're putting
expression.
the action, you're expressing, and
Right.
you're not holding it in and holding it in silence. And I pray that everyone has someone. If you don't have anyone, there are so many support groups for grief, online, in person,
Yeah.
in at religious places of worship. There are so many different places that you can go and get in touch with someone if you need someone to speak to, if your grief is overwhelming. We talk about prolonged grief. Prolonged grief technically is when it's been greater than a year and you haven't been able to move through the stages of grief. We're not talking about when a holiday comes or a birthday or an anniversary and you
Right.
have those moments where you need to sit with it
Right.
because of the day and the significance that it has. I'm talking about if you're in a prolonged for a
And you've not
year,
been able to
move into stages.
correct. Have you been able to process anger? Have you been able to process denial? Have you been able and it's not perfection or close the case. We're saying, are you just frozen?
Yes.
Are you just
Some
perpetually
people are perpetually angry and they can't move on,
right?
or they're in that denial and they cannot move on. They can't let go and find some healing. Not the sadness of remembrance, but that prolonged
That you
stress,
can't ever get out of.
depression that you can't get out of. In those instances, I would highly recommend seeking out your professional doctor, going to see a therapist, um, getting some counseling. Because some people do get stuck in those places where they can't move forward. But in the holidays, when it's just those moments that grab us, when we're putting the star on the tree, and
Right.
we remember how grandma used to always be the
Right.
one that put the star on, or there's a song that plays. Those are those moments, and they're the moments that we can have that grief and that gratitude in the
And
same
we feel
moment.
like if we have grief, we feel some sort of shame,
Right.
because we should feel joy. We should. It's Thanksgiving,
Right.
right? We should be happy, and we're getting ready for a meal, and we're putting up a tree, and we're doing.
And if
You
you're in
feel
a
like you're
safe
failing.
space with your family and friends, you're allowed to
Correct.
be sad. You're
Right.
allowed to have that moment where you need to have a cry, or you need to talk about that person that's not at the table
Yeah.
in remembrance. And in that safe space, you're allowed to do so. Don't push people to not talk about the ones that they're missing. Allow them that moment to remember, laugh with them, cry with them, hug them, share your same stories or a different story of remembrance that you have of that person and the significance they had in your life.
And keep the memories alive. Keep the memories, not just when we have loss. A lot of times we've talked about this as a caregiver. You've counseled a lot of folks that are in caregiving roles,
Mm-hmm.
and how, and I've done from a pastoral care side, counseling side. A lot of times at the end of life, people, they don't remember anything but when they were sick.
Right.
And the ways that we can is when grief comes back, it's coming back with all the memories, so you can bring back, oh, I do miss when she put the star up, or I
Yeah.
do miss when we watched this movie together, and
Yeah.
my mom was not a good cook, and she would put out like frozen, she'd put out an appetizer, and it'd be like frozen imitation crab meat,
Yeah.
and it was still not thawed out, and a little thing, like I laugh about it now. And when grief comes, I should see it as a welcome. This is a memory. I don't just remember when she got sick.
Yeah.
And when, I lost her, and I held her in those last few days, and
Yeah.
being at my brother's house and all of us together, and grief brings a whole nother level and a whole nother set of
It does.
memories that I can welcome.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I had read is, if you need God to sit in that chair, if
Yeah.
your conversation needs to be with God, if you're angry,
Yeah.
if you have questions, if you just need.
Bono wrote a line in one of his songs. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but that God is not an old man needing help crossing the street. Like he's not the greatest good is not afraid of your questions or your
Right.
anger
Mhm.
or your grief. It's not a little old man
Right.
that you got to help across the street. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the cosmic force that
Mhm.
binds us all together, not afraid of what your little simple grief
Right.
might be, and
Right.
welcomes that wrestling with him.
I, we've said it a million times. He's not afraid of our anger, of our questions, of what we need to say. He already knows.
Yeah,
I mean, he's omnipotent. So the great good, he already knows. He already knows what we think and how we really feel.
right.
So there's no reason to put on a pretense with him. And allowing yourself that space to be honest and true
And
and
say
say
things
what you need to
maybe
say.
you can't say to anybody else.
Right.
Maybe you can't whisper like
Mm-hmm.
this is how I really feel,
Mm-hmm.
and give yourself a space
Mm-hmm.
so that, like you talk about that wound, so it can actually, instead of fester, it can get refreshed,
Right.
some fresh,
Wash.
some fresh care, start healing.
Yes.
Um, because if it's unexpressed, it's there's no progress.
Right.
So that's a really
It
good tip.
is. So if you're dreading Thanksgiving, you're not alone. And that's a really big thing for us. We are inviting you in.
Absolutely.
Subscribe and like and comment. Join the conversation. We want to be a place of solace where we can encourage you. If you don't have anyone else to encourage you, put a
If
comment. We'll be happy to
if
reply.
there's one person that gets something from this conversation
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to move through this, because it is everything's heightened. The lights are brighter, the food is better, there's more butter in everything, and at the same time, that grief feels like it can knock us
Off
off
our
our
feet,
feet.
for sure.
So if one person is able to welcome some of those memories and invite that open chair technique and use that and have some progression in being grateful and having gratitude, then
Absolutely.
it's worth it.
So just remember you're not broken and you're not alone. We're here with you. You're grieving someone who mattered, and that's okay.
It is. Thank y'all.